Welcome to Beyond the Ballot AZ. I'm your host, Tom Collins, Executive Director of the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission.
And I'm Gina Roberts, Voter Education Director for Clean Elections.
So this month on Beyond the Ballot AZ, we covered a lot of ground. We talked about poll workers and the search for more of them. We talked about the passage of the state budget. We talked about Arizona connecting to the rest of the world through the diplomatic corps of Arizona. And we also talked to our primary debate moderator, Danielle Lerner, about what it goes into moderating a debate. So that's a lot. Gina, what should we start with?
It's definitely a lot, Tom, but I think there's a common denominator there. All of these topics, they can sort of sound like separate conversations, but ultimately they come back to the same idea. Civic life is happening all around us. So, voting is definitely one form of civic engagement, but it also shows up when we are watching the candidates debate, when we, put ourselves out there and serve our community as a poll worker, when lawmakers are deciding how our public dollars are spent, and even when Arizona builds relationships with countries around the world.
I think that one of the things that strikes me about that is when it comes to all these issues, as you point out, there's also information available. I mean, one of the things we're trying to do with Beyond the Ballot AZ, but what we're really doing is pulling together folks who are out there doing work and who and trying to help them connect and help the listener connect with those folks. I mean, so if you really have questions about how elections work, and you can go sign up to be a poll worker tomorrow, and you will learn, soup to nuts, everything that goes into the process of making sure that everybody's ballot gets counted. If you want to understand the state budget, there are resources out there that that will articulate how the budget works and where the money goes, and those tools are available, and the people are available to answer questions about that. So I thought this was this was robust content.
It definitely was, right? Definitely robust conversation leading up to our primary election, which, as you said, serving as a poll worker, not only are you getting that firsthand experience in how elections work, but you're making elections work. And I think that's something that maybe gets maybe not talked about enough is we need poll workers if we're going to have elections. We cannot have them without poll workers, because we're talking about thousands of people coming together, not only on election day, but prior to for our in-person early voting, and helping to process ballots and tabulate and post-election day as well. Poll workers are needed throughout the entire process. So elections aren't just conducted by government employees. Elections are conducted by your family, your friends, your neighbors, your community members who have all said, okay, I'm going to give up some of my time here, and I'm going to go and serve democracy. I'm going to serve as a poll worker. So huge shout out to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, county recorders are always in the process of recruiting poll workers for the next election. So even if you can't get trained and participate as a poll worker in the primary that's going on right now, there's a general, and then there's local elections after that. It really is happening all the time. So it was July. It was the 250th anniversary of the United States of America and the Declaration of Independence. I think we have to mention that. Did you see any fireworks, Gina?
Just, from my window, from what my neighbors were doing in the streets. In addition to celebrating America, Tom, you had a celebration too, right? Happy birthday for all of our listeners. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. It was my birthday. It was Tom Cruise's birthday. And then the other thing that happened right in that period of time was it was the filing deadline for initiatives. And so what we have now, at least as of this recording, is we have one citizen initiative that will be on the ballot, in addition to like 10 things from the legislature potentially that are getting litigated. But we have one thing so far filed. Gina, what do you know about that?
Yeah. So, and just to clarify too, this is a statewide measure here. So, voters, depending on where you live, you could see some local ballot measures there too, depending on if citizens initiatives were filed at the city or county level. But yes, here at the state, we did have a citizens initiative that was filed, and that was for the empowerment scholarship accounts. So basically what that means is that a group of individuals, they circulated petitions, they gathered signatures, they filed them with the Secretary of State's office to potentially qualify for placement on the ballot. This initiative, which would set some rules and regulations regarding the Empowerment Scholarship account. And now what the Secretary has to do is review those petitions and confirm if they met the required signature count. And if they do, if it's certified for the ballot, then voters will see that on their general election ballot. If they did not meet the minimum signature requirement, then it will not be on the ballot. I'm sure we might see some litigation, right? That typically happens. But in addition to that, one citizens initiative that was filed, we do have other ballot measures that were referred from the state legislature. So I think, is it 11, Tom? Assuming this one makes the ballot.
Yeah, assuming everything stays, everybody, nothing gets knocked off the ballot or doesn't qualify. Yeah, we'll have 11 statewide ballot measures on the ballot in the fall, which is really a lot. Gina, you used to work at the Secretary of State's office, so can you tell us a little bit about when these initiatives come in, what that process is? Because these are still paper. This is all paper, like it was the 1912, right? So can you talk about a little bit about some of the steps that the Secretary of State's office and the people working there have gone through when they're going through all those stacks of paper?
Yeah. So it's been a while since I've had to process petitions, but essentially what happens is the campaign is coming in with boxes and boxes of paper. And what's very important here is that one, you're maintaining a chain of custody records, right? So we know where these petitions are at all times. The campaign is giving an estimate of the number of pages and signatures that they have. And then what happens is the Secretary's office and their staff, they go through a process that is outlined in statute and the Elections Procedures Manual for processing those petitions. So they're making sure that they conform with state statute requirements on how they should be filed. For example, do they have, the circulator's signature on it? Is it notarized? Things like that. And they are counting. So they are counting the number of signatures and the number of sheets, making sure, okay, yes, this is, not just a blank line, or does it have a date on it? Again, they're following what those requirements are to count as a valid signature in both the state statute and what the procedures manual says for processing those petitions. And then and they're doing this again in a secured room. So we're making sure that those petitions are secure. I believe they may allow observers from the campaign. Yes. And so it tries, it intends to be a very transparent process. And then ultimately they are doing a final count, and they are saying, okay, this is the final total of signatures that we have calculated here. And it does or does not meet the minimum signatures required for placement on the ballot. They will then issue that information. And then at that point, we could see some challenges come in. So if it failed, it could be maybe the campaign is saying, hey, hold on, you incorrectly rejected some of these signatures or petition sheets. You threw out this whole petition sheet and you shouldn't have done that type of thing. Or alternatively, it qualifies, it gets certified for the ballot. And then you have campaigns who are coming in here and saying, no, it shouldn't, you should be rejected. And so you go through that challenge process. And then ultimately, you see a final determination on, will this make the ballot? Clean Elections is available to come out and give presentations on those to help you and your community learn more about them.
Yeah, we had a lot of demand for that in 2024. And our colleague Avery Zola and I were out at a variety of different venues. I did one in somebody's kitchen in Tempe. He had a neighborhood group, and he had about 10 or 12 people in his neighborhood that wanted to hear about the initiatives. We were there. So, it does frame a lot of the discussion for folks who are looking at the campaign. And this litigation that Gina was talking about is, it's pretty intense. It's pretty fast paced, but it is, it's interesting. It's in and of itself. But it's also, one of the one of the most important things that's in the Arizona Constitution. I mean, we're one of a minority of states that actually lets voters directly propose laws on the ballot. So it's an incredibly important part of our system here in Arizona.
Yeah, they are scrutinized, pretty in depth. And so, correct me if I'm wrong here, Tom, but I believe for our petitions, do those follow strict compliance as opposed to maybe our candidate petitions, which are more like substantially compliant with law?
Yeah, so there is a standard for review in these matters, which is referred to as strict compliance. And basically, what that means is if you're doing an initiative, a voter-driven initiative, the legislature has passed a law that tells the courts to examine everything to make sure it follows as much as possible the letter of the law. Candidates, who the legislature is at certain points, they get a much more generous substantial compliance standard. So in the substantial compliance world, you will find people will simply not follow the statutes that apply seemingly to candidates, and the courts will say, well, it was close enough because we don't think any voter was confused. Although, once an initiative qualifies, the presumption is that it should stay on the ballot.
So to just bring this back home for voters, look back to a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago, when maybe you were exiting the grocery store or the library or the MVD, and somebody with a clipboard came up to you and said, hey, can I tell you about this initiative here and get your signature? This is what it amounts to. So this is maybe you signed it, maybe you didn't, but all of those petitions were filed. And so now it's in processing, and we'll see if it makes the ballot. I think a more important question here is, did you go to Buc-ee's?
I took a family trip out to Buc-ee's. That first opening weekend was something else. I mean, the Goodyear Police Department had a 7-mile loop to break up the traffic, to control the flow of people into the Buc-ee's parking lot. That was really well done, I got to tell you. It was almost like going to the opening night at the State Fair. I mean, our plan is here sometime in the next month or two to try to get a sense of what the economic impact is, because, I mean, you could tell if you drove by, that Bullard Avenue exit any time in the last month now, you could see the impact, if nothing else, on the city of Goodyear.
It's, an exciting phenomenon here.
Look, I mean, I probably will go back again. I think it's, and certainly, I'll also note, for those of you familiar with the, if you're heading west on I-10 between Phoenix and Tucson, there has been a sign there for many years that says, to go to Buc-ee's, turn around and go back 979 miles. And that sign was replaced over the weekend of July 4th, and it now directs you to go to the Goodyear Buc-ee's.
Well, there you have it. So in addition to talking about the economic development of Buc-ee's, we will also be working on our general election debate schedule. Let's see, in August, we will have the official canvass of the primary election. So lots of good stuff coming up.
Make sure to check out our website along the way, where you can find all your debate information. You can find you'll find information about candidates, how to participate in the general election. You're going to find information about the initiatives and referendums and anything else you could hope to find. It's all on azcleanelections.gov.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Ballot AZ. I'm Gina Roberts.
And I'm Tom Collins. We'll see you next week.